RAFA Nadal analyzes the Alcaraz-Sinner rivalry and calls for a strong third rival. The rivalry between Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner has become one of the main focal points of modern tennis. On this situation, RAFA Nadal shared his thoughts in an interview on El Larguero, where he analyzed the current state of the men's circuit and the influence both players are having in the most important tournaments on the calendar. The former player from the Balearic Islands acknowledged that this constant duel between the Spaniard and the Italian is one of the aspects that most attracts his attention when he follows tennis news. Although he admitted that since his retirement he watches fewer matches than before, he still follows with interest how Alcaraz and Sinner are starring in many of the decisive matches of the season. Even so, Nadal believes the circuit could benefit from the presence of a third contender who could enter that fight for titles. Someone is missing who can push them a little, the Spanish champion explained during the interview, making it clear that competition usually grows when several players regularly compete at the highest level. In that sense, Nadal pointed out that such pressure could also be positive for the protagonists themselves. It would also be good so they feel they need to play well to reach the finals, he said. According to his analysis, from the outside it may seem that even when they are not at their best, both players still keep advancing through the rounds. For that reason, he mentioned players such as Alexander Zverev or Daniil Medvedev as possible names capable of challenging their dominance on the tour. Ferrero explains why he stopped following Alcaraz on Instagram. More than 2 months have passed since Carlos Alcaraz and Juan Carlos Ferrero ended their professional relationship after 7 seasons and many successes together. The split and the secrecy surrounding it have meant that the matter has not fully closed and many uncertainties remain. Ferrero addressed some of them, at least from his side, in an interview with Josep Pedrerol. In a preview of the interview, which will be released in full this Thursday at 15:30 Spanish time on El Cafelito de Josep Pedrerol, the coach from Alicante gave his version of what happened, stressing that his decision to part ways was not motivated by financial reasons, as had been rumored. "I didn't do it out of spite. Because of the affection formed during their 7 years together, Ferrero hopes for a reunion with Alcaraz. I'm looking forward to seeing him and giving him a hug. To normalize everything that has happened. I think there's a conversation still pending. I would like that." One of the controversial steps Ferrero took after the separation was unfollowing the current world number 1 on social media, a move that, according to Ferrero himself, does not hide any negative background or show any problem between the two sides. "I don't follow him because I need a bit of time to separate things. At the same time, if I look at Instagram he appears everywhere anyway. In the end I didn't achieve anything. You follow tennis accounts and tournaments and he still shows up." This Thursday there will be many more answers about the issue. Carlos Alcaraz spoke this Friday for the first time about the professional split with his coach Juan Carlos Ferrero, with whom he worked for 7 years, and assured that it was a mutual decision and that it was a chapter that had to end. Ahead of his debut at the Australian Open, the player from Murcia explained in a press conference that the separation was accepted with normality and gratitude, while reaffirming his full confidence in the team currently accompanying him. "It is a chapter of my life whose ending had to come now. We decided it this way and I am very grateful for everything I learned with Juan Carlos. Thanks to him I am the player I am today," said Alcaraz, who emphasized that they maintain a good personal relationship after the professional split. Feliciano analyzes the Alcaraz-Ferrero separation. Feliciano Lopez admitted to Pedrerol that the breakup between Carlos Alcaraz and Juan Carlos Ferrero surprised him. "It seemed premature to me in the sense that I saw a very strong bond between them. There are coach-player relationships that are stronger than others," Feliciano commented about this partnership that ended in mid-December 2025 and that he considered one of the most solid. "I felt that Alcaraz still needed Ferrero a lot. That's why I said publicly that it seemed a bit premature to me, although I believed and knew that Alcaraz is so good that he would be able to keep winning," added the former player. Carlos Alcaraz is already in the United States to soon participate in the Indian Wells Masters 1000. This weekend the Mercian will begin his run in this important tournament, and although he is fully focused on his sporting performance, he is not losing sight of world events. In particular, attention is focused on the armed conflict recently triggered by the attack of the United States and Israel against Iran, a war that continues to intensify and affects several countries in the Middle East. Alcaraz himself was in that region a few days ago. However, others were not so fortunate and became stranded, unable to move to their next destinations. Carlos Alcaraz hits the ball during the final of the ATP 500 in Doha. Reuters. "It was unexpected because just a few days or a week earlier we were all competing there. Suddenly all this happened. Seeing some players trapped there, unable to compete, was worrying, at least from my perspective," Alcaraz commented regarding those colleagues affected by the conflict. After the Doha tournament came Dubai. The Spaniard did not take part there, but major players such as the Russians Daniil Medvedev, Andrei Rublev, and Karen Khachanov, as well as the Dutchman Talon Griekspoor, among others, did compete. Suddenly they found themselves caught up in the outbreak of war after the attack by the United States and Israel, and with the closure of the airspace they could not leave the United Arab Emirates, remaining undefeated. For now, Carlos Alcaraz remains undefeated in 2026. After being crowned champion of the Australian Open, his main goal for this season, he also won the ATP 500 Doha, defeating the Frenchman Fils in the final. At the moment he is competing in his first Masters 1000 of the year, Indian Wells, a tournament with which he has a special relationship, as he has already won 2 titles in his still short career. The Mercian debuted there in 2023 with a victory over Daniil Medvedev, 6-3, 6-2, and in 2024 he repeated the title facing the same opponent. Alcaraz arrives at this new competition full of confidence. His victory in Australia made him the youngest player in history to complete the career Grand Slam. At 22 years and 272 days he managed to complete the cycle of the 4 majors, Roland Garros, Wimbledon, US Open, and the Australian Open. In his first press conference before his debut at Indian Wells, the Spaniard highlighted the reason for his excellent start to the season. "I think on the court I manage my emotions better," he said. "I would say that has been the key to the level I'm showing lately. Because I control myself and, from calmness, I find solutions," he added. "I'm very satisfied with how my year started. I hope this streak continues, or at least I will try, but I'm happy to see that I'm playing tennis at a very high level," he concluded. Boris Becker points out the main difference between Alcaraz and Sinner. Few voices are more authoritative to talk about tennis than Boris Becker. The former German player, winner of 6 Grand Slams and one of the most precocious players in history, he won Wimbledon at just 17 years old, knows firsthand what the pressure of the tennis elite is like and has analyzed the situation of Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner, the 2 current dominators of the circuit and winners of the last 9 Grand Slams. The champion of 2 Australian Opens, 1991 and 1996, 3 Wimbledons, 1985, 1986 and 1989, and 2 US Opens, 1989, believes that too much pressure should not be placed on Alcaraz and Sinner when comparing them with the Big Three, Roger Federer, Rafael Nadal and Novak Djokovic. It's very difficult. It's a long road and I wouldn't put too much pressure on Carlos and Jannik. They are very young, so we have to give them some space to develop. They certainly have the talent and the power, but you would have to ask me in 15 years and then I could answer." Becker said this Tuesday in Madrid during the event announcing the nominees for the Laureus Awards 2026, where Sinner and Alcaraz are nominated for Sportsman of the Year along with Ousmane Dembélé, Mondo Duplantis, Marc Marquez, and Tadej Pogacar. The former German player, born in Lyman on November 22, 1967, stated that nobody is invincible but that at the moment Alcaraz is clearly the number 1. "We all have good and bad streaks. Right now he is clearly number 1, but anything can happen in sport. It's always very unpredictable and that's what makes sport beautiful. At the moment, Carlos looks great," Becker admitted. Becker also spoke about the iron dominance imposed by Alcaraz and Sinner and the fact that they have won the last 9 Grand Slams. "That is good for them and bad for the others. We thought that after the era of Nadal, Federer and Djokovic we would not have another superstar, and now we have 2, Becker analyzed. "Tennis is more popular than ever before and you have 2 different characters. Spain is very fortunate because it had Nadal for 20 years and now it has Alcaraz, who is an emotional and charismatic player. And opposite him is a colder player like Jannik Sinner, who is completely the opposite of him, but both are very good and this competition between them will be there for years," the former German player said.